They look exactly like us. They think like us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. Today we are going to cover a movie that I feel like some people really like it and some people really hate it. And it doesn't get as much praise as I think it should. We are going to talk about Jordan Peele's Us. Yep.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. This is kind of going along with the theme of it's summertime and the fact that this takes place at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk in California, which is a near and dear place in my little heart. I used to go there when I was a kid, so I was very excited to see it in yet another movie aside from Lost Boys.
Right.
So anyway, we're going to talk about Us.
Yeah.
We have seen this movie a couple times, but like every other time we do a video, when I decide to do the research on it, there's some deep dives in there and a lot of notes. Josh needed to point out that there was 3.5 pages of notes, and that's a lot. If you have not seen Us and you actually don't want spoilers, then you should stop this video and go and watch the movie and then come back. If you don't care, then here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, there are.
So Us is a movie of a small family with a teenage girl and, preteen, and her little brother, and the family is going to the beach house for the summer.
Right.
The mom in this, she had a little traumatic experience, though, when she was a child.
Yes.
That she doesn't disclose to her husband until later on for whatever reason. Why would you have a marriage where you don't tell each other everything? I don't know. But when she was a child, she was at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and she went wandering off because her drunk father wasn't paying attention to her.
Right.
And she ends up in a maze. And I thought it was interesting when I was looking at this again today that, first of all, this maze does not exist. Just so everybody knows, they put it on the beach itself, probably because there's no place on the boardwalk to fit it at this point.
That was kind of odd.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
It was
I
strange.
guess they wouldn't have room for it
Yeah,
anywhere. So.
well, and more than likely this was filmed during the winter when the boardwalk is closed. So, for the most part, closed. But anyway, so she goes into this maze, and on the sign above the maze it says, "Find yourself." And there was just some little detail that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
Because I'm just always so excited to see Santa Cruz that I'm like, oh, whatever, cool. But anyway, so she wanders into this maze, and it's kind of a cool maze, I have to say. I don't know why I like it so much, but I do. And it has like a foresty scene, which reminds me of the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so while she's in there, she kind of gets disoriented, and then she turns around and she sees basically the backside of herself.
Right.
In the opening scene. She later sees herself, but at the beginning, it's
they
just...
don't show everything right away.
Yeah,
which
they don't.
Is good.
It's good, because it brings you in real quick as to, like, what the hell's happening.
Yeah.
So, now that she's older and she has her family, and they're at this beach house, and her husband is obnoxious and not very understanding of anything.
No.
He's kind of dense.
He's kind of a dull tool, yeah.
Yeah. So he just really wants to go to the boardwalk, and she's like, I don't really feel like it. But she doesn't tell him until later on as to why. Like, why? This is why I'm saying, why would you not say?
Yeah. I kind of wonder if she didn't really remember everything at first.
Oh, and this all kind of piqued her
Yeah.
memory. Yeah, I guess that's possible.
I mean, that's just my theory. I don't know for sure.
Well, she started getting weird feelings as they were going and getting apprehensive and just kind of weird about things. So, but she finally just gives in to the dark side and goes. They go to the beach. And things just kind of, they seem like they're okay, but you know that something's not right. And at one point, the younger boy, he goes wandering off and goes to use the bathroom, and then she freaks out because she can't see him. And, of course, that ties back to her situation.
Right.
Because she did have, the doctor said that she had PTSD as a child. So the family is just like, okay, and they're hanging out with this other family that's just the rich assholes. And so this family's trying to compete with them, essentially, and there's no way financially that they could do it. Like, the dad goes and buys a boat, but it's a total piece of shit.
Right.
And just things like that. And so it's just this competition. And it kind of reminded me of The Great Outdoors, with John Candy being the main family, and then, what's his name, Dan Aykroyd's family, the snobs.
Right.
Being that it just kind of gave me those vibes. But anyway, so they part ways because Mom's all frazzled after all this. They're at home, and suddenly there's a family just standing on the driveway. They basically break into the house, and the main family discovers that they look like them, but just aren't quite them.
Yeah.
Something's a little off once again with this family.
Yes.
And notices that they're all wearing red jumpsuits and these weird Jesus sandals and just funky stuff going on there. Each family member, just like any person on this earth, has their own demons, their own skeletons in the closet and things to deal with.
Right.
Obviously, the mom, she has issues with her past childhood trauma. The husband is just trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
The daughter is just kind of struggling, trying to find her place as she gets older. She's usually in like track and field, but she's just kind of like hemming and hawing over that now. And the little boy, he's just awkward. And so he wears this mask to make himself stronger and more powerful in his mind.
Right.
It gives him, I don't know, some feeling of being brave or something like that. And he's also likes magic.
Yeah.
So he's always trying to play with this trick that essentially is like a lighter. And so he keeps flicking it, but it won't work. And I don't know what trick that would be.
I don't know what that was either. I've been trying to figure that out every time we watch this movie, what that's supposed to be, and I still haven't figured it out.
Well, and I'm sitting there going, when I was a kid and I got a magic kit, it was like some stupid scarves and some bouncy ball things that you had to make disappear. It sure wasn't a lighter.
Yeah.
So that's a little strange. But anyway, so they're dealing with all that. So when the weird family, who are later known as the Tethered, they all basically attack their doppelganger.
Right.
And they bring in their demons into each of their attacks, which I think is fun and interesting.
Yeah.
The dad, he goes out onto that stupid boat, and so it's his little pride and joy and whatever, and it's just it's ironic.
Yeah.
The teenage girl, she is running, and that's her thing, that's her strength, and it ultimately did help her.
Yeah.
The little boy, they actually go play together, which is really weird. And the closet that's in this house, it locks if you don't put something in the way of it. Why you wouldn't replace that latch, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, I think that was part of probably just to show like how like run down their stuff was compared to the other family. They had the nice big beach house and the huge boat and everything, and then they have this kind of rundown that they can't even fix the lock on a closet.
By the way, I have to say, I don't like the rich people's house as much.
Yeah.
I like the other one.
I agree.
It's mid-century, it's rad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he brings the little boy into the closet to show him his magic trick, and it really was to trick him to get locked in the closet.
Right.
So, it just continues with that where they're being attacked. The mom's being attacked by the other mom, and she's starting to explain that she doesn't out and out say that, oh, this is how I am and this is what's going on. First of all, her voice is jacked.
Yeah.
She's the only one that can actually verbalize in a very, very strange voice. The rest of the Tethered family can't. They just make sounds.
Yeah, they're very, to me, it's kind of like not only the demons of the family, but also like their primal selves, They're kind of like these more animalistic, more lizard brain people.
Exactly. Well, and it's because they've been kept underground and they couldn't learn and adapt to outside life. But so the Tethered mom, which her name is Red, I'm not remembering all these people's names. There was each character has obviously their regular name and then their tethered name, and it's just
we're not a lot.
Yeah, we don't need all that. But she explains, that you left me in that maze, and while you went and enjoyed delicious food, we ate rabbit, and just and apparently rabbit's not very good. I don't know, especially when you don't have seasoning.
It's not that bad.
Nobody needs to eat Thumper.
Nobody needs to, but I'm saying if you're in a pinch,
I guess,
you can eat a rabbit. It's not that bad.
Anyway, so she's just basically saying that, well, you're outliving your life and whatever. We're underground.
Yeah.
The Tethered people live underground in these tunnels. That is kind of mentioned in just a little blurt at the beginning of the movie, that there's thousands of miles of underground tunnels that are unused.
Right.
I don't know how true that is. I mean, aside from the underground tunnels that were used during slavery, I don't know of other ones.
Well, like, for instance, like Iowa State, there's tunnels underground that aren't used for anything.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You sure they're not used for something?
Not that I know of.
Some weird ritualistic
they could be,
stuff going on there.
There could be some skull and bone stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Some corn and cobs.
Yeah, but there are supposedly tunnels underneath.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Disney World has tunnels underneath too, but it's not like they're easily accessible to weird creatures, you know. So, I mean, you know, hey.
And that's one thing we talked about earlier before we started the video is, you know, I thought that the doppelgangers were an experiment. Mm-hmm. Was that your take on it, or what do you think?
That it's hard to say because she doesn't really clarify. I was really waiting for some clarification along the way, but there wasn't. You were saying that, you know, it was possibly by rich people, scientists, making these people up and doing that. But there is a lot of symbolism with religion in this.
Right.
So I just wondered if it was a thing about God and God's cruel tricks. That's the only thing I could come up with on it, you know. So either way, it's not good.
Right.
You know. So the family, they actually get away from the house and these people for the most part, and they go to their friend's house, the rich people, and they find them dead because they had their own doppelgangers that came in. And I have to say that is probably one of the best kill scenes I have seen.
Oh, yeah.
Just a lot of blood and guts and gore and Elizabeth Moss in there, which I really like her because of Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. In spite of the whole Scientology thing.
Yeah, the Scientology thing, no. But all the rest of it, and then while all of this is going on, there's humor just sprinkled in, which definitely, it kind of breaks up everything and kind of makes you recenter yourself. And one of the things is that they have what is like an Alexa, but she's called Ophelia, which I think is funny. I'm like, that's quite the elaborate name for Alexa, but okay. But the dad is like, oh, I'm going to play the Beach Boys, and it was Good Vibrations, which is an amazing song. Yeah. Kind of an odd pick for the situation. You know, I think it was more of it because he's a dick. Yeah. So I think it was more of a everything's fine with me, everything's cool. Yep. And while his wife is like, I heard something outside, and he's just like, yeah, whatever. I think it was one of those types of situations. That makes sense, But at one point, Elizabeth Moss she is struggling on the floor, and she says to Ophelia to call the police, and then Ophelia decides to play Fuck the Police by NWA, which is so funny. Yeah.
Sure, playing Fuck the Police by NWA.
Anybody who has one of these things, an Alexa, we all know how much she does and doesn't understand.
Some things get lost.
Yeah. It's pretty comical sometimes. But yeah, you can make her make fart noises.
Right.
Yeah. Different types. She has different types.
Yes, she does.
It's very interesting. But anyway, so the family's just kind of, after all these people have died, they're like, what the fuck are we going to do? And they go and kill those doppelgangers as well. And they're just sitting there just watching TV. And
and that's kind of when they come into their own, is sort of, you know, their survival instincts, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's one thing, though, that the son keeps looking at his mom when she does certain things, because they decide to finally leave. And, of course, the family's excited to go drive the new Land Rover that this family had to brag about. But they forgot the key. So the mom goes back into the house to go get it, and she has to use a fireplace poker and beat the shit out of
one of the daughters.
Yeah, one of the twin daughters. Yeah. And the son witnesses it, and it's just kind of like, where did that come from? Yeah. Because she's so skittish normally.
And then she kind of goes off. And
exactly. Yeah. So, and you don't really think about these things till after the movie's over with. But it is one of those things where it's kind of like, who are you? Yeah. You know? And ultimately, we question that later. So, yeah, they go on, and they're seeing that the town is, it's a mess. Yeah. It's like a zombie apocalypse. But there's this whole thing where, you know, outside it's bright and beautiful. They're beachfront homes and all this. But then you got this shit just going down, you know, and it's kind of a funny opposite situation, you know, and it makes you kind of question things. Yeah. So they continue to have to deal with these doppelgangers because they can't kill off their own doppelgangers, and it's just taking forever.
It's a whole cat and mouse game.
Yeah, it just keeps happening, but it's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say the ending.
Okay.
But eventually she has to go and get her son because he is kidnapped. Right. And that's when the story is almost completely explained. Yep. Almost.
And they confront she really confronts her demons at that point, I would say.
Yeah. In more ways than one. Yeah. And so if we were to go back to the beginning of this and the symbolism behind it and all the little things, the details that I didn't notice before, like the find yourself thing on the sign. Yeah. One thing that we noticed is when, in 1986, with the first little girl that later becomes a mom, she's her dad's playing a game to win her a prize, which is a Michael Jackson Thriller shirt, which I thought was rad.
Yeah, and I was going to say something about that real quick. Did the red jumpsuits and the one glove, was that kind of like their version of Michael Jackson's Thriller outfit,
Well, the glove, possibly, but also Jordan Peele says that one of his favorite horror movies, is Nightmare on Elm Street. So I think that it was kind of a nod to that, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in 1986, everybody wore one glove.
Yeah.
So stupid. But the jumpsuits, that's a combination of a lot of things. It was to become uniform, because when Red finally is like, oh, I can gather all this shit together and get these people to, come out and kill everybody.
Right.
She basically gives a uniform. So they're unified in one way or another and know who's who, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But also it reminded me of the cult that was in San Diego. What were they called? The ones that felt like they were going to go to space, and they had the Adidas.
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate, yes. Yeah. And they all had uniforms.
Right.
And that's what it reminded me of, because they were setting them down on the bunks and all that. And I was like, that's just like the Heaven's Gate weirdos. So I think that that's where that comes from.
Okay.
As far as the sandals go, like I jokingly said, they were Jesus sandals.
Right.
They really were Jesus sandals. I mean, the fact that they were beige.
Right.
And they just look like something you would see in some sort of biblical painting, or something like that.
And they see her Red as this messianic figure, so it kind of makes sense.
Exactly. So, but while they're at that game and wins that prize and whatever, the guy, I don't know, Carnival Barker, whatever you want to call him, he's wearing a Black Flag shirt. Right. And we were both like, oh, that's pretty funny and rad, because it's just something we didn't notice before. Yeah. And then we noticed that there's one hanging up as well as, I'm assuming, a prize.
Yeah, as a prize. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
That's the coolest carnival ever, where you can win a Black Flag shirt.
And he was trying to say that those weren't the good prizes, that you had to go to the next level. I'm like, a shirt.
Right, that's a pretty good prize.
I have never seen shirts as a prize at any carnival in my lifetime. Yeah. I think the best thing were those weird pictures. What are those pictures you always know the name of and I don't?
Oh, lenticular ones?
Yeah, lenticular. It's a weird word.
Fun word to say.
It is a fun word. It would be a great band name.
Yeah.
But so the Black Flag shirts, and if you're not familiar, I'll put one up on the screen here, what Black Flag's symbols are. But basically it's 4 lines. And so, okay, we were just like, oh, whatever, no big deal. Maybe he likes Black Flag.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Peele's a pretty rad guy.
He is
so
pretty cool.
It's quite possible that he likes them. And then later on with the teenage twins of the rich family, one of the girls is also wearing one.
Yeah, and that's the one with the bars on it. So
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, we kept seeing that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, that's kind of strange, but we just wrote it down, or I wrote it down in my 4,000 pages. And then the other thing was at the beginning when they were driving into Santa Cruz, a man was being brought out on a stretcher, and he was supposedly dead.
Yeah.
And he was a homeless man. And it was kind of funny because the mom said to the kids, don't look, like protecting them from something. But then later on they see all these dead bodies.
Right.
So I think it's kind of funny. But he had a biblical verse, well, at least the book and
the book and chapter.
Yeah.
The sign that he's holding up says Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 11, and Jeremiah is a prophet in the Old Testament. That's all I really remember about Jeremiah. But anyway,
he was a bullfrog.
He was also a bullfrog.
Yeah.
That's true. That particular chapter in the Bible says, "Therefore, thus says the Lord, behold, I am bringing disaster upon them that they cannot escape. Though they cry to me, I will not listen to them."
So you have the Bible verse stuff, and then you have the 11:11 stuff. Mom notices 11:11 on an alarm clock at one point. So I was like, okay, what's the significance of 11:11?
11:11 is considered powerful and creative, representing new beginnings, leadership, and spirituality. It is a message from angels to stay on the right path and embrace opportunities. The number 11:11 can help fulfill dreams and desires through active participation and setting clear intentions.
There you go. If you don't look at those little details, like I said, we totally missed these before. And to see the Black Flag logo in any way, we would have normally noticed this.
Right.
So it's really strange because every time we watch a movie and there's like a band poster up, like in Lights Out, she's got a ghost poster and things like that, we notice it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was strange that we didn't see this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, maybe we had our heads up our asses.
Yeah, well, I think with the Jordan Peele movies, like, he's so far outside the box with everything that I think you're looking for, you're not focusing on a T-shirt, even though that T-shirt might have significance. You know, you're looking for other things.
Yeah, you're trying
to find the significance.
It's like to throw you off.
Yeah, exactly.
To throw you off the path, which I think is pretty cool. And I think that's why his movies appeal to me so much, is because he doesn't, it's not just blunt and direct. And I think this is, once again, why people have a hard time with these movies, is because they're not blunt and direct and blood and guts and, you know, just slap you in the face with some horror.
Yeah.
It's not like that. There's actually thought behind them. I think that's why he had criticism for Get Out and anything else that he's done for that matter.
Yeah.
The fact that he was part of the sequel to Candyman and got criticism for that, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, because there's more to the story.
Right.
There's more to the story, folks. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll all make it. Well, one thing in particular that's kind of a reach for some things, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that this little boy, his name is Jason in this movie. And like I said, he wears a mask, and it gives him his strength and his, you know, I don't know, whatever, feeling brave to be able to conquer things. And the fact that Jordan Peele is such a big horror fan,
Right.
I thought it was strange that this little boy was named Jason and he wears a mask,
right.
just like Jason Voorhees.
And yeah, and I thought, you know, you had said Chewbacca. I thought maybe it was a werewolf. I don't know, but I thought, you know, either way, it's this animalistic character, and I thought maybe that was kind of a tie back to these doppelgangers being primal as well. You know.
Oh yeah, I guess it could have been the werewolf, huh?
Either
it's
one.
It's hard to
still...
tell with that one. It's
Yeah.
kind of a generic mask,
Yeah.
so it's not really obvious. But it just reminded me of the Chewbacca mask
Yeah.
that a lady made viral. That was so funny.
Yeah.
She was
Oh,
laughing so hard. In the bonus features, there is a really good interview with Jordan Peele, and when you get to have an interview with a director, and his movies can be somewhat confusing, and there's a lot of these little details. This is like a gold nugget handed to you for him to explain things so thoroughly so you understand what's happening. And he does this with every movie. If you look at bonus features for Candyman, amazing bonus features in there. So this had no shortage of good stuff. And normally I wouldn't quote or whatever the actors in their interviews, but they all made very good points in this. A word that kept coming up was duality. Basically saying that both the good and the bad of these people is in us. And so that's the struggle that these people are having. Like I said, struggling with demons, it's that. And we try to mask it or hide it in some way that is not so obvious to people. And that's what all of these people were doing. And so there's that situation.
Yeah.
And one of the main themes that I found almost immediately when we started watching this movie, I stopped it and I said, this is the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
A lot of movies these days are, well, just going back even, it's usually be careful what you wish for. That is an ongoing theme in horror movies specifically.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that movie Tarot.
Yeah.
That we turned off after 20 minutes. There is in this movie the, what is it called? Hands Across America.
Yep.
And if you guys remember, if you're old enough to remember this stuff, there was an ad that was on TV where it was this fundraiser for, I think, homeless or something like that. I can't remember. It was a fundraiser. But supposedly people across the world were going to join hands to raise money. And Jordan Peele talks about this because he thought it was always so interesting that here you're going to go and do this whole thing that's so symbolic. Is it really helping those people, or is it helping yourself because you can visually see that I'm doing something right?
Lupita Nyong'o.
There you go. Couldn't even pronounce it if I wanted to. She said something I thought was really interesting. She said, when you have an us, you'll have a them. And I was like, man, that's some eerie shit right there. That is some eerie shit, but it's true. It's true. And I just thought it was kind of creepy and but it hit the nail on the head in a one sentence explanation of this movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think the only other thing I thought was interesting in this, and this is only because I have a dance background, is the fact that the little girl, like I said, I'm not going to give away the ending of the movie, but there is a ballet scene. It's a ballet that's supposed to be done with two people. It's a duet. And in this, you'll see the good girl. She is up above dancing on the stage, dancing by herself to this. But down below, you see her doppelganger doing the same routine in a much crappier way. But ultimately, that's how she got picked to organize this Hands Across America thing and going and killing everybody.
Right.
Because they saw that she could connect to her outside person in a much more, I don't know, visceral way. It was, you know, it was a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
I really like this movie for the fact of it really makes you think. It really makes you want to appreciate what you have. You know, everybody struggles. And even earlier today, struggling thinking about some stuff within our personal lives. And then I watch this and I'm like, oh, we should appreciate what we have, as opposed to going, I wish we had this.
Right.
So it's kind of cool if you think about things. But if you're just like, oh, I wish there was more gore and blood and shit, it's just right over your head.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. I don't understand that, to not want to understand any movie, even Friday the 13th. I mean, that's why he wears the mask. You know, he's deformed, but also it's to give him his, you know, make him feel brave and get on with it and kill people.
Right.
So it's kind of, you know, there's thoughts behind every single script and every movie, no matter how bad the movie is. You just have to pay attention to those details. So I really hope that if you haven't seen this, like I said, I didn't give you everything. Trust me.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you haven't seen this, that you'll go watch it and watch it with great scrutiny because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
And if you have seen it and you didn't really care for it, watch it again, but with these things in mind.
Open your mind.
Yeah. Expand, bro. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Well, like I said earlier, Jordan Peele's so far outside the box with everything. You know, he took an idea like, you know, it's basically like, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and then just totally threw it for a loop. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
That he could take it, you know, a pretty old idea of the doppelganger. You know, there's been legends and stuff about that for, you know, centuries or whatever, and just totally turned it on its head. I just think that's really cool. I think that's a great thing that he does and all his stuff that he's involved in. So yeah, this is another great movie from him. And I always, anytime I hear that he's up to something, I look forward to seeing what it is, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, there's something, I don't know, rumors flying around about him doing People Under the Stairs, a remake.
That'd be cool.
So I'm totally down with that. Like you said, anytime he does something, I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
And I even, subscribe to Monkey Paw production stuff just to see what's going on with it. You know, I like I said, I really hope that you guys give this movie I can't talk. I hope you give this movie a chance because it's well worth it. It's well worth it. It's a thinker, which is my favorite type of horror movie. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. So, because if you grew up around the Bay Area, you know that was like the shiz. Everybody bragged about going, and it was so cool. And I got to take Josh there a few years ago. I don't even know, at least 5-6 years at this point.
Yeah.
And he could see how cool it was, and it wasn't even really open. It was an off-season thing, but it's just rad.
Yeah, super cool.
And the fact that it's Lost Boys territory. So, anyway, I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
So, we'll see you next week. Bye.